Welcome to the 16th Synergy Speaker Series. We have a special guest today, Mr. Catlin, who's currently the principal at Sunset Ridge School. They're in a major transformation, very exciting time, and because of that transformation, one of the things he's got on his mind a lot is interviewing. So he's in the process. He has hired a bunch of new staff. He's going to continue to hire new staff that is going to help that school go to a place that it's never been. It's literally building an option in this district that didn't exist before. So he's here to talk to us today about interviewing. Principals need to worry about that quite a bit, and so he's got a lot of stories, a lot of insight on this, and so without further ado, we're going to hand it over to him.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say it's nice to be here talking to some familiar faces and some new friends. Interviews. So Mr. Alhaus asked me to talk about interviews, and basically there are 5 words you never want to hear after an interview. What do you think those 5 words are?
Didn't get the job.
Didn't get the job. Absolutely right. And the one thing that they hurt, but it is certainly not a death sentence if you hear those words. I can definitely tell you that I've been administrative for 5 years now. I went on 10 interviews before I got my first administrative job. So if you do the math, I was 1 for 10. That's 10%. Not very good, right? You don't succeed in life being 10% good at anything. Well, that's what happened to me. I failed 9 times. 9 times. And it was multiple rounds too. So you would go, interview, go to another round, and then that dreaded phone call. You know, Mr. Catlin, you didn't get the job. So again, not a death sentence. But what I also want to talk to you about is a model that I really believe in going into interviews, and a model not only that you can use at an interview, but anything you do in life. So we see it, we have a basketball player here, football player here. You know, whatever you do, you can apply this model for those things. So the first thing I want to discuss is I don't want you to fall into the common tripwires or the holes that most people fall into. So the first thing that I highly recommend, I want you guys to picture a triangle. You know, picture a triangle? Mm-hmm. Okay? I like triangles. And I like triangles because they all fit into each other. It's all nice and neat. And up on the board, I put a little, my handwriting stinks, as Trendell probably remembers. My handwriting is not very, very good. But the bottom left-hand corner is the first thing I think you need to control when you're going on interviews. And that's your approach and how you prepare, right? Just like anything in life, if you don't prepare, you're not going to be very successful. So how do you prepare for an interview? Do you have any ideas? What's some things you can do?
What you going to say? Dressing appropriately?
Okay, so dressing. Obviously something you need to consider. How am I going to dress for this interview?
Like that.
Okay, probably like this, absolutely. So do I need a tie?
No.
Okay, if you don't need a tie, you're in good shape. Do I need a dress? Do I need this? These are all things you want to take care of ahead of time. Because certainly the day of the interview, you don't want to go in there and be like, I don't have a tie. And you're running to your guidance counselor, Mr. Alhaus, saying, I need a tie, I need a tie. All stuff you want to take care of ahead of time. Absolutely. The way you dress, very, very important. What else?
Walk in with a smile on your face.
Okay, walk in with a smile on your face.
Positivity.
Positivity. All important things. What else? One thing that I would encourage all of you to do is do some research. Every company now, whether it's Burger King, Subway, colleges, our school, your school, you all have websites. Go on the website and do some research. What's going to separate you from other people is that during the course of an interview, you know something about the place you're interviewing at. So for example, if I go to apply to the New York Yankees, now Mr. Alhaus and I disagree on sports teams, but I'll let it slide. I'm a New York Yankee fan. If I was going on an interview for the New York Yankees, I need to know something about them. The New York Yankees have a grooming policy. What that means is you can only have a mustache. You can't have a beard, can't have a goatee, can't have long hair. So would I go into that interview looking like Grizzly Adams coming out of the Alaska woods? Would I? Absolutely not. Why not? It's not their policy. I wouldn't get the job. So that's just a small example. So if you're going in, I heard some people say you were interviewing at Burger King, right? What's something that you can learn about Burger King that may help you in an interview?
The food.
Okay, so something about the food. You know, I've been going to Burger King my whole life. I love the, I don't know what they have, a Whopper. Is that a Whopper?
Yeah.
I love the Whopper Junior. Whatever you need to do to separate yourself from other people. Okay. Secondly, there's 2 questions that I think you can always prepare for. Can anyone guess what those questions are?
Why do you want it?
Your strength.
Okay, so like the first question and the last question. two questions that are really similar in all interviews. First, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you want this job. And if you look at that person with a blank stare, you're in trouble. And the reason why I think those questions are the most important is because you can control them. I know I'm going to get that question, and I know at the end I'm going to get a follow-up question. You can control those questions. In between, it's fair game. You don't know what they're going to ask in between. You don't know. You don't have to, what's the special sauce on blah, blah, blah. I don't know what that is. But I certainly can tell them a little bit about myself in the beginning and why I want this position. So what can you do to prepare for those kinds of questions?
Research.
Research is probably part of it. Good. Anybody else? This is going to sound funny, but you got to rehearse. Get all the information down. You write like a little essay to yourself, write like little notes, and you got to rehearse it. So I'm in the car for my last interview when I got this job, and I'm literally talking to myself as I'm going down the street to work. People next to me thought I was absolutely nuts. What is this guy doing? And I was rehearsing those questions. So when I came to the interview, I've already been there a million times. Not physically, but mentally, I was already there. Very similar to basketball. What do you think the best free throw shooters do in the world?
Practice.
Practice, not just physically, but also up here, mentally. It's an important yet neglected skill. Because once you do that, you've already been there a million times. There's no pressure, because I've already gone through those questions a million times. There's pressure when you're not prepared. When you're not prepared for a test. You go in there, I'm like, oh my God, I got a test today. It's because you're not prepared. If you're prepared, you're confident. Think about it. Preparation equals confidence in my eyes. And very much within your control how you prepare. So think about it. Tell me a little bit about yourself. So some of us, if you have a nice smile, you have a nice smile. You go in there and you smile and you give that person something from yourself. So that's approach, right? Approach or preparation. Everyone kind of get that? Mm-hmm. So that leads me into the next thing up the top, and that's results. We've all been there. You went to practice the other day, and I keep using sports because I played a lot of sports. You shot 100 free throws after practice, right? You made 90. You made 90% of them. You went to the game and you clanked 2 of them. You missed 2. That's a result, right?
Yeah.
Was your approach good?
Yeah.
Was the result good?
Yeah.
You missed all your free throws in the game. Is that a good result?
Missed 2, nah.
It's not a good result. Can you control that? How can you control? You put a perfect form on it, hit the back of the rim and bounced out.
Mentally.
Is that within your control that it hit the back of the rim and bounced out? No, it's not. You can't control results a lot of the time. I can tell you right now, out of the 9 interviews that I didn't get the job, I know 1 interview I nailed. I did as best as I could. I prepared. I know I did a great job. I didn't get the job. I didn't get the result I wanted. I got a negative result. I couldn't control that. Sometimes you're going to go into a job interview and someone else is already going to have the job. And that's just the reality. It happens all the time. It's happened to him, it happened to me, it probably even happened to you. You can't control results. What can you control? Go back to my triangle. What can you control so far? We talked about 2 things, results and approach and preparation. What can you control?
Preparation.
Preparation. You prepared for that interview. You did as much as you possibly could for that interview. You didn't get the job. Now it leads me to the last piece, is your reaction to these things. And this is probably one of the most important things you can do. How are you going to react to the result you got? I tell you, there's basically 2 ways I think you can go with this. One way is very positive, and one way is very negative. And the negative way would be to do what? You come out, you got the dreaded call, right? You didn't get the job. You got the dreaded call, right? Everyone hates. What do you do next?
Get ready for the next one.
Okay, you get ready for the next one. That would be a positive way. What would be the negative way to react to it?
Quit.
What do you mean quit?
Like stop.
Stop going on interviews or,
Stop looking.
okay, stop looking for a job could be a negative consequence, negative reaction. What do a lot of people do? A lot of kids this age. I work with 6th and 7th graders. What do a lot of my 6th and 7th graders do when they make a mistake? What do you think they do? You guys got younger brothers, sisters? What do you think? What do you think they do? You had your hand up.
They just like complain or something.
They complain. Do they take responsibility? No. No. They don't take responsibility for their actions. They blame someone else. So you don't get the job. Who are you going to blame that you didn't get the job? in a negative way.
Oh, the people that
People hired, they're stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. It's all their fault I didn't get the job, or it's my mother's fault because she didn't get me out of bed today on time, or she didn't iron my pants. Whatever. You shift responsibility away from yourself. I think that's the worst thing you can do. Now, on the positive way, how else can you react?
with an understanding mindset.
Okay, a understanding mindset, sure. What else could you do? Think about a reaction to things. You didn't get the result you wanted. How do you react? So let's go back to his foul shooting, or your play football, what positions you play.
Safety and receiver.
Safety and receiver. Kid, quarterback threw you a cookie, man. Hit you right in the numbers, you dropped it. Right? How do you react?
Typical.
How do you react? What do most kids your age do? How do they react?
Beat themselves up.
They beat themselves up. They react with anger. Anger will get you nowhere. Anger will get you nowhere. Okay, so think about your reaction. Getting mad is not fair. Bad mouthing the organization. We've had other people I know who haven't gotten jobs. They start bad mouthing people. Word goes around, man. People know each other. And they're never getting jobs now. So, how do you react? Let's talk about positive ways to react. Bad result, you prepared. Bad result, how do you react?
But you asked them what you did wrong.
Absolutely. Positive way to deal with it. Hey, I didn't get the job. Can you give me some feedback? What can I do better next time? Absolutely, great answer. What else can you do?
Try harder.
Okay, so what does that mean? Try hard is a very, very broad statement. It's a good answer, but what do you think? So you didn't get the job. Is it possible for you to pinpoint where you could try harder? So you need to try harder preparing. You need to try harder doing more research. You need to try harder doing more rehearsing. So that's what you got to figure out. And that's your reaction to things. You got to be reflective. Where can I get better? And then set a plan. If you have a negative reaction, what's going to happen to your approach the next time? So if you think about this. Yes. Who said that? Absolutely. If this is negative and this is negative, this will always be negative. You'll never get the results that you want. So back to my free throw. Your approach was awesome, man. You took 100 free throws, you made 90 of them. You missed them in the game. Your reaction is, I'm going to keep working harder. Good approach, you will start getting the results that you want. And this triangle, I think you can apply it. I apply it every day of my life. I apply it to when I golf. I apply it to when my work. I can't control results. I control how I repair. I control how I react. You control those two things, guys. You will start getting jobs. And the good news is, every time you go on a job interview and you don't get the job, you're actually increasing your odds of getting it. He's a math guy. He'll tell you the same thing. It's weird that you say that, but it's true. Every time you fail, you're actually increasing your odds of getting a job. That's a pretty cool thing, if you think of it like that. But that's a mindset. That's hard to do. It's a challenge. So those are kind of the three things that I want to talk to you about in interviews. That's kind of what I was...
So the reason we have Mr. Catlin here today is next week, guess what you're going to talk about in AB?
Interview.
Guess what you're going to practice in AB?
Interview.
Yeah.
So you guys can get a leg up. Tell me a little bit about yourself. If we asked you that Monday morning in AB, you should, the 10 of you should have a great answer to that.
And I wouldn't want, there's a lot about yourself. You guys are all complex people. You guys have a lot of strengths that you can offer. You can't tell them everything. But you got to narrow it down to about 3 or 4 things. Because most interviews, just like a movie. Anybody see Independence Day in here? Independence Day, way back when, old movie, Will Smith.
Sounds familiar.
I know it's an older movie. But think about movies. You remember the beginning, and you remember the end.
Mm-hmm.
The middle, I don't know. I don't know. It's almost like the same thing for interviews. I'm going to remember how you came in and how you left. The middle sometimes gets a little fuzzy because I've been sitting interviewing people all day long, and I'm exhausted. I got someone that comes in with energy, comes in and shakes my hand, hey, good morning, how are you, gives me a nice smile. All of a sudden, it lifts me up. I might remember that person versus someone who comes in, hey, you know, this is all dragging.
So what's the key word? We want to know, if we're interviewing somebody, we want to know about the person we're interviewing. So what's the key word in that tell us a little bit about yourself question?
A little bit.
A little. And Mr. Catlin's, I've sat in interviews. I actually was on a committee when we were looking at assistant superintendents, and there was a person who came in and their answer to that was about 7 minutes long. And so they have about a 15, 20 minute, half the time, tell us a little bit about yourself. They kept going and going and going. Do you think it mattered what that person said in the next 5 questions? I mean, I listened, but much of what, I mean, you heard all you needed to hear in many ways in that first answer. And so, likewise, I've been on interviews, and Mr. Catlin's right, you are actually driving and rehearsing that. You're doing it at home. You're literally in your sleep knowing what your answer is to that question, and it always has to change depending on the job that you're applying for, depending on, you know, this is my 3rd year at Synergy. If I had to interview for Synergy right now, it'd be a very different answer to that question because my experiences have changed. That last question, what do you think you're always asked at the end?
Why should we hire you?
Okay, you might be asked why, or tell us a little bit more, or ask us some questions.
Anything else you want to add?
A very general way for you to say, okay, this is my last shot to tell me I'm walking out this door, but you're not going to look at any other names on that list. You found the person you want to hire. It's me. And it's about projecting that confidence. So that end question is often the time you've been dying to say something and they haven't asked you a question that has allowed you to share it yet. Figure out a way to weave that in.
And they ask you sometimes at the end, do you have any questions for us? And if you're like, no, walk out the door, bad impression. What are some types of questions that you can ask a person? Is there some training program that I will have to go through? Pretty positive, right? So what's that question showing you? Showing you that you care about getting trained. So it shows that person that you care about improving yourself. Is there a training program that you're offering us?
What Ed asked in his final interview was, someday will I be able to run the speaker series at Synergy?
Right.
So.
But it's a lot of opportunity there, right? That gets lost in a lot of interviews.
So, what questions do you have? So you've heard a lot. Maybe you have a question that you've been asked during an interview, or this is your chance to pick Mr. Catlin's brain about the topic of interviewing, but it could be just something unrelated that you've discussed in AB that you want his perspective on. The above and beyond class that they get to see these speaker series in. Led by Mr. Figueroa. So who has a question? Or what made the most sense in terms of what Mr. Catlin just talked to you about? What are you going to, tomorrow if you had an interview, what are you going to do differently based on what he said? Turdell?
I would kind of like follow that triangle that he like used to approach, and then your results, and then your reaction. Yeah, I would use that.
Okay.
What's that?
Prepare.
Prepare.
What if you don't know how to prepare? What if next Friday you have an interview and you really don't know how to prepare? Ask. And here, who should you ask?
Mr.
That's me.
Mr. Figueroa.
Yeah, you guys are so lucky. Maybe you realize this, maybe you don't. But what you're doing in AB Above and Beyond, having your guidance counselor accessible to you with a guidance team, with the guidance specialists and tutors who on a daily basis can talk to you, yeah, they always have a plan of what they're doing. But if a student pulled them aside and said, look, I got an interview on Friday and I need help, what do you think they're going to say?
Go to class.
If you're in that class, good, and that would be the right answer if you're not scheduled to be in that class. But every single one of you has AB on your schedule for 45 minutes a day. So period 3, you're in there, and you have an interview coming up on Friday. Do you think they'd help you? They're dying to help you. And know that that's a smart use of that time. You know, they're not going to say, well, we're doing an interview in week 17, so talk to me then. We want to help you. And we realize we've been in your shoes, and it's hard to be a teenager. It's hard to apply for that first job. It's hard when you work your butt off to get a job, and they tell you, you're really good, but you're second. You know?
I guess, too, another part of your reaction piece would be like a follow-up email or a phone call or like a note card. Yeah, I tell you, it goes a long way, right? The next day, you're still in between candidates. You're not really sure who you're going to hire. All of a sudden, I see an email, hey, thank you for your time. I really appreciated being there. That person just got a leg up if I was in between candidates. And how long it take you to send an email? 10 seconds? Is it worth 10 seconds every time to maybe separate yourself from someone else? I think it is, right? I definitely think it is. I appreciate your time. I really liked your business or wherever you're applying for. Really simple thing to do that can really go a long way. And even if you don't get the job, now you're in that person's mind. This lady, you're a classy lady, man. You just sent me a card. It screams class. So now, next time there's a job interview and you apply for the same spot, your name automatically goes to the top of the list. Just think about it. When we interview people, there could be 100 candidates. There are 100. Literally, we have to go through all of those. What is going to separate you from someone else? It could be a card. It could be me calling Mr. Allis. Hey, Mr. Allis, I had a great candidate today. I know you need a job. You need someone for this position. I got a candidate for you. I call Mr. Allis. Now you're in the door there. That's how it works with us.
And likewise, I could look at a person who's applied and they put Mr. Catlin as a reference, or they've gone to school. You never know how someone is going to be able to help you. And that's the thing I've learned over the years. I've sometimes left the job or sometimes applied for something, and then afterwards, how you respond to that is huge. Like, so if I go to an interview, as Mr. Catlin laid out, and I don't get the job, and then I go, oh, well, I didn't want to work there anyway because of X, Y, and Z. Well, guess what? Now there might be a job opening in the town next door, and they may call, the place where I was runner-up or somebody was, and ask, hey, did you have any strong candidates that you weren't able to hire? You always want people thinking highly of you. You're going to leave here, and somewhere in your life, you're going to come across someone from the Synergy family, a teacher, a tutor, somebody, and they're going to be in a position to help you. And your interaction with them today in the hallway, your interaction with them last week, a month from now, that could be the difference between you getting a job and not. And it sounds so crazy, and it sounds silly maybe, but really, that's how the world works. And in interviewing, you have a small period of time to sell yourself, to do that elevator speech, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, to show them why you're the best person for the job. That's a huge thing that you do control a lot of it. And then there's a lot of things behind the scenes that maybe you don't control. So
Another thing I recommend highly is after the interview is write down the questions that they asked you. Because what can happen is you didn't get the job, but now it's experience.
Yeah.
Every interview you go on is experience. And experience is gold, right? You can't replace it. There's no reason why senior basketball players at UConn are typically better than freshmen. Because they have more experience. Really. Same thing with football. Anything. It's just experience. And if you can write down the questions, chances are you're going to get asked similar questions again. And then you can really prepare. Not only you can prepare for the first and the last question, now you have some questions in the middle that you can prepare for. But you can't prepare unless you know. And what happens is you forget. You go home and say, I'll write it down tomorrow. Next day you're like, well, I don't remember what they asked me.
that's a great tip that I would encourage everyone to do. Right afterwards, in the car, take out your notepad, write them down.
Speak
What's
into
fresh
your
in
phone.
mind.
You
Yeah.
got the speaker thing in your phone. You talk right into your phone.
And even say some of your answers, and then run it by someone who you trust. Hey, this is how I responded. How could this answer be better? I heard Mr. Catlin talk about experience, and I remember applying for my first job, and many of you have encountered this. You don't have any job experience, and so you're looking for someone to hire you when you don't have any experience. What's a way around that? If I'm interviewing all of you and I'm trying to find the next great helper, the next great employee for my organization, how are you going to stand out when you don't have experience? What's one thing you could say that would sell yourself? Nothing? You just don't hire me, hire the person who comes in after.
Everyone quiet down.
You don't have to be a job. You could probably say something similar towards a job, like helping your neighbor or something
Okay.
like that.
So I don't have experience here, but I have similar experience. That'd be a great answer. You're making an argument to consider me. Mr. Catlin and I both had to make that argument when we became principals, because quite frankly, we're younger than most principals. You wouldn't know that with my gray hair. This guy hides it a lot better than I do.
Well, I'm just losing my hair. So.
Details. But the reality is, when we went into interviews for our first principal jobs, we had to convince people that we had enough experience that they should take a chance on us when someone else might have more experience. What I advise you to do, if you don't have the experience, figure out a way to convince the employer that you're worth the risk. And one way you can do that is references. If you have people who vouch for you, if you have teachers, if you have administrators, hey, I know
Coaches.
yeah.
Coaches.
Anybody, someone in, away from here, you're involved in your church. An adult who's, not a family member, who's gonna say good things about you, that means a lot. When I'm reading a letter of recommendation and they're really, I can tell when someone really is writing a good one or someone just, okay, this person keeps asking me, I'm gonna write one just to get them off my back. A good letter of recommendation means a lot. So behave in a manner in school, away from school, where you have a lot of people who want to write letters for you. You'll graduate here and you might not have a job you're applying for right now. Ask a teacher that you care about or ask an adult to write a letter on your behalf. And then 3 years later, they probably have that on the computer, so look them up. Stay in touch with people who can be individuals who can speak on your character, speak on your work ethic. We'll give you guys a chance for the final word. A last minute question. Anything you'd like to say in terms of appreciating Mr. Catlin's time?
Thanks for coming, sir.
Okay,
Thank you guys for being respectful.
round of applause.